Spring is just about here, and that means it's time to think about our gardens. Gardening books are generally how-tos on ways to make your garden look prettier or blossom more fully. Authors promise to help your lawn flourish and to make your house stand out from the others on the block. Often gardening books will outline plans on making your vegetables grow to their fullest potential and may offer some tips on how to keep pesky animals at bay. In that respect, Benjamin Vogt's new book, A New Garden Ethic, Cultivating Defiant Compassion for an Uncertain Future, will stand out as a different kind of gardening book. He throws away the expectations of self-gain and preaches how to grow a garden that focuses on helping wildlife and the environment.
It is totally not a how-to book at all. It's very much a philosophical book, and I think it goes well beyond gardening. It's about the environment. It's about our relationship to nature and our relationship to one another.
That's Vogt, who is also a garden designer with Monarch Gardens in Nebraska.
I'm trying to convey basically that we need to rethink how we use plants in our gardens and what plants we're using, because in a time of climate change and mass extinction, our gardens could be making a significant difference for species just trying to survive and adapt in the world that we are recreating through carbon dioxide emissions, plastic everywhere, different weather patterns we're changing.
The new garden ethic that the title is hinting at is really a credo he wrote into his book at the end of the chapter, which outlines his vision for the power of gardening and the future he'd like to see for lawns and green spaces across America.
This is what a new garden ethic is. Your garden is a protest. It is a place of defiant compassion. It is a space to help sustain wildlife and ecosystem function while providing an aesthetic response that moves you. For you, beauty isn't just petal deep, but goes down into the soil, further down into the aquifer, and back up into the air and for miles around on the backs and legs of insects. You don't have to see soil microbes in action, birds eating seeds, butterflies laying eggs, ants farming aphids. Just knowing it's possible in your garden thrills you. It's like faith, and it frees you to live life more authentically. Your garden is a protest for all the ways in which we deny our life by denying other lives. Plant some natives, be defiantly compassionate.
There's a lot to unpack in Vogt's new garden ethic, but he says it really boils down to respecting the land and the ecosystems native to where we live. A good place to start is with that defiant compassion he mentions both in the title of the book and at the end of his credo. Defiant compassion is to push back against the American development ideas that say to rip out nature for bigger houses, newer malls, and concrete parking structures.
I live out here where the tallgrass prairie used to be. There's only 1 or 2% of it left. But the wildlife who still call that space home are still here. So active gardening, I think, anymore is very activist-based. It's saying, look, I'm not just going to have lawn, because lawn is a desert. It's not sequestering carbon. It's not helping water filter down to the ground. It's not helping pollinators. It's not helping bees. So I am going to go against the norm, and I am going to put a prairie garden out front or a desert garden. Wherever you live, you're putting the kind of garden out there that belongs in your environment and your region. So that's where the defiance comes in. That's also where the compassion comes in. Because if you're planting a milkweed, you are being compassionate towards monarchs who have to use milkweed as a host plant.
And it's not just milkweed. Vogt says there are many plants that we can do a better job of including in our front yards that will enhance the world around us.
Anything that has the name weed in it, in the common name. There's sneezeweed, and people think, oh, it's going to make me sneeze, which isn't the case at all. There's ironweed. Of course, we mentioned milkweed. There's Joe Pye weed. So all those weeds are in there. We also have this aversion to the thistles. We have an incredible array of native thistles across the country, and usually you can tell they're native because the leaves on the bottom are silver. But we do obviously have invasive non-native thistles like Canadian thistle and musk thistle. So thistles are incredibly important because they're a late-season nectar and pollen source for pollinators and insects. And, of course, goldfinches will use the fluff. Goldfinches are the last songbird to nest in the summer, and they're timing that nesting for when the fluff of thistle starts to come out because they line their nests with that fluff.
In addition to helping the animals, Vogt says that revising our gardening habits can help us as human beings as well.
Urban settings right now, they tend to be very lacking in green spaces of any kind, whether that's lawn or trees or garden spaces. There's also a lack of wildlife, and I think we associate that lack of wildlife as our culture evolves as just being normal. but it's very much not normal. Kids looking out of a classroom, if they just see concrete and lawn, that's not very helpful for them. But if they see a view of diverse plantings, a bunch of flowers, trees, shrubs, all kinds of different things, their test scores go up, their creativity goes up, they're able to focus a lot easier, they can work in groups better. Hospital patients can recover faster with views of nature. Office workers looking out of an office building, seeing wonderful gardens, are going to be more productive, and healthcare costs can actually decrease for business owners. That's just one small snippet of the benefits of having wildness in urban areas.
Another benefit of more wildness in urban areas is that it can cool our environment, both by combating climate change and by simply providing us with more short-term fixes on uncomfortable hot summer days.
Let's look at trees in urban areas are incredibly important. I'm a fan of having trees along the sides of roads and, of course, around buildings. I'm also a fan of having prairie or shrubland or whatever go underneath that, so we sort of complete the habitat and complete the ecological function. But if you look at a tree, just like a tree that's 30 foot wide, that's going to cool the area around it by 2 to 9 degrees just by transpiration, and that's the water that it's giving off through its leaves. That's not even taking into account the shade underneath it, which is going to cool the area 20 to 45 degrees, depending on what time of year it is and where the sun angle is.
While more shade and more transpiration will make life a lot more comfortable, Vogt says it can also decrease violence, which statistics say will rise in the heat. Ultimately, Vogt says, the benefits of planting and gardening differently are vast, but that it's very easy for us as people to focus on the cons.
It could sound like a lot of work. It could sound scary. It could sound like, oh, this is going to be a messy habitat. We're very good at, this is going to sound harsh, but as a species, we're very good at creating excuses for not doing what we know is probably the right or the ethical thing. And I talk about that a lot in Chapter 3. There's a lot of psychology going on, especially with people who deny mass extinction and climate change. And it's totally natural psychology how our brains are working. They're trying to preserve this sense of order, this sense that everything is going to be okay and I am going to be safe, when that maybe isn't really true.
Vogt says the onus is on us as humans to value our links to nature and take gardening and preserving wildness seriously.
We have this biological need within us, and scientists and philosophers and ecologists have talked about this a lot. We have this innate genetic programming to love nature, to respect nature, to want to be connected to it. And so when we try to mow back nature or spray wasps or spray bees to keep them away from us, we are basically saying nature should not exist where we live. We are really fundamentally denying ourselves and denying our place in the world when we're pushing nature back away from us. I have a lot of people tell me, well, if I put a garden in, I'm going to have mice and snakes and stuff. And I said, well, of course you are. And if you do the garden right, if you have the diverse planting, diverse landscape with all kinds of different plants, you're going to have predators come in. They're going to help balance the ecosystem for you.
In the end, Vogt hopes that gardens created from the new garden ethic can enhance our world better than gardens created with the sole intention of looking pretty.
Gardens are first and foremost something for us. I mean, they are an art form, and we want them to look pretty to us. And I'm asking us, well, what does pretty look like to everything else? So obviously, there are traditional ways of creating a garden so that it looks appealing to us. But if you're going to have a landscape that looks a little wilder, like in my front yard, I took out the 1,000 square feet of lawn and put in a meadow garden, 2 beds on each side of the front yard, and up the middle is a 6-foot wide lawn path. And that says, hey, this is a purposeful space, even though the beds on both sides might look a little bit wilder. We can put benches in our landscapes to say this is for human use too. And then obviously when we're sitting on those benches, we're just going to be in that environment, and we're going to hear the bees and the wasps. We're going to hear the birds, and we're going to see the butterflies, and we're going to realize, you know what, this is pretty darn cool. I want more of this. I feel good being here.
For more of Benjamin Vogt's vision for better gardens, you can get his book, New Garden Ethic, in stores and online now. For more information on all of our guests, visit our site, viewpointsonline.net. You can find an archive of past programs there and on iTunes and Stitcher. I'm Gary Price.
Many seniors are not receiving an important health evaluation during routine checkups with their doctors, according to the Alzheimer's Association 2019 Alzheimer's Disease Facts and Figures report. New data shows that only half of seniors are being assessed for cognitive decline in the primary care setting, and only 1 in 7 are receiving regular assessments. Alzheimer's Association Chief Program Officer Joanne Pike says the report highlights a missed opportunity for seniors and their physicians.
These findings are in sharp contrast to the majority of seniors who receive other routine assessments like cholesterol, diabetes, vision, and hearing. The Alzheimer's Association encourages seniors to be more proactive in discussing memory-related concerns so that changes warranting further attention can be addressed in a timely manner.
Pike says that while there is currently no cure for Alzheimer's, early detection and diagnosis of the disease offers many important benefits. Learn more about the warning signs of Alzheimer's dementia at alz.org.
2 new studies show that only 10% of young women are aware heart disease is the leading cause of death in women. In fact, more than 75% of young women say they're not worried at all about getting heart disease or worry only a little. The surveys show they're much more concerned about other health issues, such as mood disorders. These, along with lack of awareness, are barriers to heart-healthy habits, according to Dr. Mary Ann Bowman, an American Heart Association science volunteer.
It's important to remember that heart health is a long-term goal. We can help encourage young women to adopt health behaviors, like moving more and eating smart, to improve confidence in the short term, while at the same time setting them up for a healthy future.
The surveys find that most young adult women have taken some actions to preserve their health, but heart health ranks well below concerns such as depression, anxiety, and sexual health. The studies were presented at the American Heart Association's Epidemiology and Prevention Lifestyle Scientific Sessions 2019.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Viewpoints is a production of MediaTrax Communications. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook to learn about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on iTunes. Plus, you'll always find podcasts of our segments and information about our guests at viewpointsonline.net. Join us again next week for your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.